notice that a landlord could send to a tenant for the purpose of starting a dialogue with the tenant regarding the payment of rent during the coronavirus pandemic. The other form is called the RPD. It's the Coronavirus Rent Payment Delay and Repayment. It's an addendum to a residential lease or rental agreement that, when agreed to and signed by the landlord and tenant, documents the tenant's claim that the tenant is unable to pay the rent and the reason for the inability, the proof of the inability to pay, the amount of rent not being paid, and the plan to pay it in the future. So as we go through the forms, I really want to talk about what that means because it's super important. People hear news, people hear information, and we all hear it differently. Some people will hear the sky is blue, some people will hear the sky is azure, some people will hear the sky is falling. Okay, so it's important for us as practitioners to present the information in a dispassionate way, right? This is the information as we have it today. All right, so the first one, the notice of tenant ability to pay rent during the coronavirus pandemic. All right, this is a notice to the tenant. It explains federal, state, county, and city orders. All right, this form explains that regardless of which order they live under, they must notify the landlord of the ability to pay or the inability to pay. All right. It further explains that regardless of any abatement ordered, rent will be due and payable once the order is lifted or has expired. Okay, so as I stated earlier, our current executive order from the state goes until May 15th. And then we have local jurisdictions we need to pay attention to as well. So for the state, we have May 15th as that date. In Palm Springs, I think they're mirroring the state. Any other cities, we just need to keep our eye on it. So if you've got a tenant situation or a landlord situation in one of the other 8 cities in the valley, understand what their orders, if any, are. All right, and then the tenant must notify the landlord of the inability to pay. And if no notification is given, rent is due and payable according to the lease. All right, so it's important to remember, because the reason I say people hear things differently is some tenants have heard about the abatement of rent and it's like, okay, rent's not due. That's not the case. Mortgages are due, rent is due, car payments are all due. Now, there's some workaround for this period that we're experiencing right now, but the money will still be due. All right, and that's really important for people to understand. So if you're dealing with tenants, very important that they understand that this is not a get out of jail free card. This is a pause. You can pay your $50 and sit outside of the jail on the Monopoly board. All right, the next form is the Coronavirus Rent Payment Delay and Repayment Agreement. All right, this, the tenant has already given the previous form, the NTAP. This form is the financial agreement between the landlord and tenant. It identifies the duration. It explains why. It arranges for proof of loss of inability and when it will be provided. And that's very important. Both forms and the state of California have said you can pause your rent, but you have to show us why. So the tenant will have to provide their either termination, their layoff notice, some bank statement, pay stub that shows that they're not getting paid or getting paid less. Because not everyone's getting laid off. Some people, their companies have cut their salaries or cut their pay. So there's different ways to prove that you don't have the financial ability to pay the agreed upon rent that you had when you signed the lease. Section 4 identifies the duration and the amount of the delinquency. So perhaps they took a pay reduction and they can afford to, maybe their rent's $2,000 a month and they can afford $1,000 a month. So this is where you itemize what they're able to pay or not able to pay. All right, Section 5 outlines the repayment schedule and terms. And then letter D notifies the landlord that these terms will be extended if and when the orders are extended. So let's say, for example, Washington, Oregon, and the state of California, the governors of those states look at all of the scientific evidence and the data, and they see that, okay, well, we're not quite ready for a full-on open. We're going to start with this sector first, but we're going to extend these other orders that cover rentals until, let's say, June 1st. I mean, they extended 2 weeks. So this automatically extends all of that during that executive order period. All right. So then the next page of that form, section 6, informs the tenant that the manner of payment to remain the same as the original lease. So whatever their original lease agreement was and how they said they were going to pay payments, whether it was a cashier's check, electronic wire, however they were paying their rent, that remains the same. And then section 7 explains that the evictions are prohibited during the duration of the executive order of the governor and local jurisdictions. So those of you who represent landlords need to understand, or if you have tenants and they're maybe, you know, coming to you for advice, there are no evictions during this period. Okay, so those are the two forms. I would really encourage you to come see Stephanie or myself if you're in this situation so that we can walk you through it because it is a repayment of past rent. The rent is not forgiven in any way.
All right. Dwayne, can I ask a question? This is more, yeah. Just like with the CVA form, we didn't go out and distribute that to people, putting things, a thought in their mind, you know, whereas this one, the notice of tenant to ability, are we actually actively going out and distributing this to a tenant? This puts a thought, I think, in their mind. I would think we're waiting for the tenant to come to us with a concern, right? And that's, I've had conversations with other property managers, and that's what we came up with. I wanted to confirm.
Absolutely. We're not throwing this form in front of people, but I want you to know that if a tenant comes to you and says, hey, I just look, we've got a lot of friends who are bartenders, waiters, waitresses, hairdressers. They are not working. They are not making money. And they probably rented something, okay? They're going to come to you and say, I don't know what to do. This is a tool for you to help them. Stephanie and I have been talking since the beginning of this, of getting out there and helping people. So now this is an opportunity because eventually one day that renter is going to be a buyer, right? So you want to be of service. So if they're telling you that they're struggling, yes, that by all means, at that point, you take that form to them and say you have some options, but you need to explain it to them because the money is due when the order is lifted or by the terms that they agreed to, right? The seller and landlord, like any other contract, both parties have to agree in writing to the terms, all right? So we have to be careful because there are some landlords who maybe they bought several investment properties. Like we've all worked a lot at PS Villas 1 and 2. Some people own 10, 20 units over there. Well, if they bought those as investments and suddenly you've got 10 or 20 tenants not paying rent for a couple of months, that puts, you know, financial pressure on now the landlord as well. So everyone's feeling the pinch here. So we need to just very conservatively, in my opinion, approach this on a case-by-case basis. But I'm not recommending, and I don't believe Stephanie's recommending in any way, that we run out there to all the tenants and say, here, you don't have to pay rent for a couple of months. Because you actually could be hurting them, all right? If you do this 2-month delay, now they're further in the weeds. If the rent's, you know, $1,000, $2,000 a month, that's, you know, $2,000, $4,000 plus rent's due on June 1st. You know what I'm saying? So it's really important to not, unless they need this help, I personally wouldn't encourage my clients to do it.
Yeah, that was
Dwayne, we've got a question in the chat. For clarification, these forms are in effect only during the lockdown period?
That's correct.
Yeah, the answer is yes to that. So I think these are very interesting because these forms actually put in the applicable law that was put into date on March 16th by Governor Gavin Newsom. It says his name in the form. Yeah. That's not a form that's going to outlive him. You know what I mean? Like I don't think, I could be wrong, but it doesn't seem to me. It seems to me like this form is for a temporary use, that if they were going to keep it for another purpose, and maybe they will, that they probably will evolve it and maybe use it in a different way. But this to me seems like a very limited time frame form, especially when they use the name of a governor in the order. Like that just seems to me like it will have at some point, it will be removed.
And they actually have the order date as May 15th. So they literally put in the May 15th date as well. So these
I do see that. Yeah. Okay.
Yeah. Okay.
And did we answer we did answer his question. Oh, okay, got it.
Okay, so we're just doing some forms stuff. So Stephanie and I wanted to make sure that you all have the latest BHHS version of that advisory and mutual release. Notice at the bottom left-hand corner of the second page, there's a revision date. Make sure you're using the most recent one if you need to use it. Again, this is an if you need to use this form. All right. Now, with that being said, Stephanie and I, when all of this went down, we had countless conversations, right, Stephanie, about what we can and can't do, what we should and shouldn't do. And we both agreed that we don't want anyone to do anything they're not comfortable doing. Now, that being said, all of us have a different threshold or a different understanding of what we should and shouldn't be doing. So as much as I don't want someone doing something that's going to make them uncomfortable, we've talked about this a lot recently now that we're starting to get an understanding of what we should do. I don't want to be judged for going out and showing property to a client who's about ready to write an offer. So we were seeing some of that out there in the industry. We were seeing some client shaming or some agent shaming on social media. So Jim Franklin sent Stephanie and I an email over the weekend letting us know that the city's attorneys has come up with some guidelines. Stephanie mentioned it yesterday in the week ahead. So we would like to go over that with you so that it's pretty clear what the city's attorney says is best guidance for our agents. All right, real estate protocols under COVID-19 during a shelter-in-place order. I'm not going to read to everything word for word. I'm going to point out the most important things. You guys are going to get a copy of this and you can read it. All right. So open houses, including model homes, are prohibited. We all know that. So that's why we have brought to you every tool we could for virtual open houses, virtual caravans. Everything is digital online. Okay. All viewings are strongly encouraged to be done online through virtual tours. Okay, so that's where Stephanie and I were having really interesting conversations, because I think at some point the directive came out that said we should not. All right, and remember earlier when I said people hear things differently? Well, when I hear the word should or shall, that seems optional. I don't necessarily mean that as prohibited, forbidden. That's me. I'm not saying that's the rule. I'm saying that's how Dwayne hears it. So I see a word like now, strongly encouraged. Oh, okay. I'm best practice is to not do it, but if I have to, I can. And I think that's really the guidance that I personally needed. Stephanie, you want to jump in with your perspective on that?
Yeah, I think the conversation that's come up when you guys call us and say, hey, I think I need to do a showing. What we ask you, what Dwayne and I generally ask you is, what other options are there? Is there the ability to do it virtually? And really ask yourself that question, because I think the one thing that I keep seeing and keep hearing and keep finding throughout this is that, again, we're all slowing down just a little bit. And we've been so busy that we've had the need to just do things quick and easy. And the quick and easy is face to face. It's a little bit more challenging when you're not necessarily in the property or in front of somebody. But if you can get a buyer there, if you can get a buyer to at least a place where they're willing to make an offer or have narrowed it down to just this one property, and we know that this is the only one they're going to see, and we're not going out showing 5 or 7 properties, I think, I'm okay with it, obviously. I just think it's up to everybody's comfort level. Everybody involved, there has to be lots of conversation, and it has to be to everyone's comfort level. And just as you mentioned earlier, Dwayne was shaming, it is what it is. There's nothing to really shame anybody about. If your comfort level is that you want to stay home and lock down during this entire thing and not do anything, that's completely okay. Let me know how I can help you. If your opinion is that you want to be able to help a client at whatever cost, and you'll figure it out, not whatever cost, but you know what I mean, then okay, let me help you figure that out, and let's figure out the safest way to do that. And so I just think that there's no happy medium right now. It's one-on-one and individual case-by-case basis. And we're having to ask these interesting questions to make sure that we're really doing everything we can to do everything virtually first before we have to do anything face-to-face. And I think that's the thing when you guys are coming to us and asking us, okay, I think it's time to get face-to-face. We're asking, well, what if, did you do this? Did you do that? And it's just a couple things to make sure that that's really the only option. And what we're finding is you guys are normally finding 1 or 2 ways to do things a little differently before you have to do the thing where there would be forward-facing contact.
Thank you. All right. Recognize that at some point, if a deal is close to being made, an in-person viewing may be necessary. Such limited in-person viewings are permitted as long as social distancing and face covering practices are implemented. Same with property inspections if called for under the applicable purchase agreement. So that's what we've been telling you guys all along. First, it's virtual. If you have to show, follow CDC guidelines. Now there are forms. Remember that PEAD, every entrant, every time. So that's really, really important.
Dwayne, we just had Janice jump in and say she's had 2 agents open their properties for my buyers so that I didn't have to go. If we put a deal together, I would, do the Avid see the property. And actually, we can chat about that. The client used masks and gloves when they went into the house, and the agent waited in the car but had the doors open. And we keep talking about that. That is there's no best case scenario right now for a face-to-face showing, but that is my best case scenario, is that the listing agent goes to the property, opens it up, props the doors open, sits in their car while the buyer goes in the property and comes back out. That means everybody has more work to do. Sellers got to make sure everything is secured so that there's nothing that's out that could be touched or taken or removed. It's just, there's a lot of extra steps that have to go into it. But again, if we're all serious about this, it makes sense to take these steps.
Absolutely. And on that note, it's not a showing of I'm bringing my best friend and my best friend's friend and my designer. No, it's the principles. Truly, it should be the principles. So it's a husband and wife, husband, whatever, wife. The people involved in the transaction, you're not bringing a parade of people with you. It's very important. So an example of how a transaction could occur is followed, all right? The seller agrees to do everything virtually. The listing agent pulls a property profile, calls title to provide, validates information. The seller signs the sight unseen hold harmless agreement. The listing agent prepares a listing presentation, sends it electronically to the seller. The listing agent and the seller meet on FaceTime or Zoom, go over everything. Once agreed, the listing agreement and all documents are done electronically. Listing agent completes the cover sheet, mails it the same day the listing agreement is signed. Agent confirms with the listing agent. Listing agent scans all documents. So these are just some steps of what to do. I think the most important piece is, the first is virtual. So you get the listing virtually, and if possible, if you must go face-to-face, follow the CDC guidelines. We've had to do it. I've gone on a couple of listing presentations where it's an older, look, our demographics are demographic, guys. And some people, believe it or not, don't have email, or they're not comfortable signing digitally. It's gonna happen. So come and see us. Stephanie and I we have the workarounds for a lot of these different scenarios. So this is a guidance. This is not a mandate. We still encourage you, Stephanie and I still encourage you, every case by case, please come to us and let's talk through what's best for you and the seller at that time to take the listing. All right. And there are, so for the multiple MLS providers we have in this office, all of them are working or have implemented the virtual showing element to their MLSs. So whatever MLS you use, contact Stephanie or myself, and we'll kind of let you know where they are in the process. But when you're the listing agent, super important, get everything done upfront that you can. If you're going to encourage your seller to get a pest inspection, maybe you want to provide the home inspection like they do in the north of the state prior to escrow. Get all of that done. Talk to your sellers. Consult with your seller and explain to them what it looks like right now. What the process is going to look like right now. I do that on a normal day when I take a listing. I walk my sellers through the whole process of listing, marketing. We open escrow, what happens? I walk them through the whole thing because my philosophy is I don't want surprises. The only good surprise in our business is if someone gets more money than they expected. Everything else is a disaster. So when I walk my clients through the process, when, not if it happens, but when it happens, they're like, oh, Dwayne said that this would happen. And they expect it. It's the unexpected. It's the surprises that really put people on edge. So right now, more than ever, when we're taking a listing, we are going to present the entire experience to them, which is why I call it the seller experience, because it is an experience. And we want them to have every scenario ready for them so that when it happens, they're prepared, you're prepared, and there are no surprises. Stephanie, you want to jump in?
I do. Actually, we got a question and I really want to address it. I think it's a great one and it leads into what you're talking to. The question is from Bill Dutton and it says, so the skeptical person that I am, the listing agent opens the house and waits outside. The buyers go in on their own and the seller screams he was robbed of something. Who's responsible? I think that's an amazing question. And it leads to the fact that we need to be having these conversations with the seller. Mr. Seller, what concerns you? We need to make sure that they understand that the buyer will be in their home unattended for a short period of time, and they need to remove all the valuable items out of the area so that we have. Listen, again, we talked about all these forms. The 7 forms that are out there are wonderful. They're amazing. Read them. Please do not practice real estate until you have read through them. You cannot in this environment without using any one of those 7 forms. So please make sure you use them, but do not think that they are a way for you to not be sued. They're not. They're a way to engage in conversation. The way to not be sued is to be professional and to be a practitioner of this business and to make sure that you're having the proper conversations with your clients. That is the only way to do it, and we address these issues. Mr. Seller, what are your concerns with having buyers in your home unattended? Do you have any concerns? Well, I've got a bunch of guns that my dad left. Okay, then maybe we need to talk about that. Like, let's think about it. I'm the professional here. Let's talk about a solution. I don't care what my opinion are on your guns, but let's talk about a solution with what you can do in order to secure those. Because now I know about it. Now I need to help protect you with that. And I know that you need to secure those before we let people in your home unattended, right? Same thing with prescription medicines. Same thing with all kinds of different things. Animals, whatever it is, those things have to be tended to. And the seller have to be willing to attend to those things. And if they're not, think about that. Think about what they're telling you. You know, people tell you the truth. They show it to you on a regular basis. Listen to them. And what is it? How do you say that, Dwayne? You say it so much more eloquently than I do. I don't know what that saying is. That people tell you, they tell you what.
Believe what. So when someone tells you who they are, believe them.
That's what it is. Yeah. And so just make sure that make sure we're having those conversations with our clients. There was another comment here. Somebody asked if that actual letter was on letterhead from the city manager, and it's not. It's actually an email directly from the city attorney.
Yeah.
And so the Word document that was given to us is literally a Word document attached to an email from the city attorney. And so I sent that, and I'll share with you that I sent that email over to Darren, our attorney, and he called me at I sent it to him, I think, on Sunday at 10 o'clock at night, and he ended up sending a response back to me at 10:30 and said, call me first thing in the morning before your meeting with your agents, and wanted to chat about it. And he was super excited that we finally got some direction. We're the first area to really have that. And so we're just, especially for the areas that are under a shelter in place, they specifically do not have what we have. San Francisco, San Mateo County, all those areas up north, they do not have the ability to work the way we do. They do not have the direction that was given to us. So, we just need to figure out ways to do this. Again, remembering that all of these graces that have been granted to us to allow us to conduct business could be taken away in a second if we do not use them properly. And so that is why it's so important, and that's why we're so vigilant about making sure you guys reach out to us and have conversations. What some of you are finding is that when you call us, you run a scenario by us and we're like, okay, yeah, you're good on that one. Let's go ahead and move forward. And then others were like, whoa, hold back for a second. Let's ask some more questions and get more involved in the conversation. And either one of them is okay. It's just every single scenario is different. We got to treat them all that way. So don't think that just because you handled something one way before, it's going to be that way now. Everything is just changing so rapidly still.
Yes. All right. So I spoke to Alan Bloom yesterday. He's got a couple of new listings coming online. He's going to send me some pictures so I can try to get his on the caravan for tomorrow. I've got 2 from Janice. I've got a couple from Lance down in Indian Wells, and I think that might be it. There are like 4 or 5 on Caravan tomorrow. So if you guys have new listings, or it doesn't even have to be new at this point. If you've got something that you have in your inventory that we haven't laid eyes on in a while, send it over to me. I need a shareable video, or I need the address, and I'll create the video for you. It doesn't matter. But we've got the virtual Caravan tomorrow. I'm super excited. And I'd love to see some more high desert stuff. I'd love to see, we went to Idlewild a couple weeks ago. I'd love to see, if it doesn't have to be in Palm Springs, guys, wherever it is. This is a really good opportunity for us to look at the inventory that we have.
Yeah, and if you guys know of another listing that maybe just a great listing that we should all see, one of those properties, certainly send it our way, and we're happy to include that as well. I know that Palm Springs PSRR started their Caravan, or whatever it is. Whatever that looks like. It'll be interesting to see. But we can include others in ours as well. If there's something that you think is interesting, we can always add it to the playlist.
Yes. And Thursday for Success Builder is business planning. So if you had a business plan for 2020 and maybe it's time to reconsider the numbers, maybe you'll feel like attending. I'm going to be putting that together on this Thursday, and then we'll have our weekly recap on Friday. We've got the continuing coronavirus resources. I can't wait to stop saying coronavirus, to be honest with you. There are the updates from April 10th, Paycheck Protection Program, the Pandemic Unemployment Assistance, and just go to that website. The CAR has the website for that. We've still got some new social media images for you available on the VAC, and we have the marketing with Maria to get you guys. And a couple of people asked me, hey, I want to do this, hey, I want to do that. Really, this is your best resource for marketing. I have my opinion. Stephanie has her opinion on what we think is great, but I'm not a marketing specialist, right? So I think for people who really want to get a good message that's relevant to what they do, this is a really great resource for you to reach out and have the experts help you with that.
Yeah, I can promise you no one has ever hired me to make things pretty when it comes to that. Like, I don't do that. I negotiate contracts.
If you're in negotiations, we are your go-to number one. That I live for.
Sparkle.
Shiny and sparkly. I'll give you my opinion. It might not mean everything. All right. There are still the tips on how to do virtual open houses. Super important to read over that if you've got some listings that you'd like to have virtual opens. And what I want you guys to remember, and the thing that I do know about like marketing, and it's not even marketing, it's just about interpersonal communication. Sometimes the more mistakes you make, the more endearing you become. So don't try to think that you need a professional production of an open house. Sometimes it's funny, people relate to you if you stumble, or you say, oh, I don't remember what I'm doing. That makes you human. Okay, so I don't want anyone to feel like, the pressure, like, oh, I have to have this, Scorsese, level production for my open house. No, the point is that you want to get the word out there. And I know lots of people have different opinions about what's happening, and I know what's happening is very serious, but at the end of the day, if we have listings, we do owe it to our sellers to promote the listing and to get eyes on it in every way we can. So, and I know that if we have buyers, we need the ability to see what's for sale. Personally, I have 2 buyers right now. One's coming from New Hampshire. She's going to be working at Desert Regional and the doctor's intern program, or not intern, whatever the doctors do when they're new. And then I have one person coming down from Sacramento because one of her relatives is ill and she's buying a place here. There are still buyers in the market, and I'm not going to, not help them personally. I'm not going to not help them. Because of what's happening. We still have to move forward. We have to respect what's going on, but at the end of the day, we have to be of service. And that's my opinion. All right. So I will see if I can get out of this. Escape. Okay, I escaped. Yay. And Stephanie, thank you so much for monitoring the chat. Do we have any other chats, questions that we need to?
We do. Actually, there's one other thing I want to share with you guys. Is it okay if I take the screen back over for just a second?
Yeah, please.
So yeah, there was, I wanted to say a thank you to Michelle Quintana. She put together a little something for us. Let me see if I can resume my presentation. Let's see. Hey, I wanted you guys to be able to see this. Michelle put that together for us. She did a little text and sent it out to a handful of people over the weekend, and then and put this together and put it out on Facebook yesterday as a little stay home to flatten the curve. So just thought that was cute. Janice mentioned it, so I thought we'd all say thank you to her for that. I thought it was very adorable. And then we had Brian ask the question, can we enter a vacant listing to video a virtual open house? And so the answer on that is if you're going to video it yourself, again, it all involves having conversation with the seller first and making sure that we're engaging them in that conversation about what their concerns are, what they're comfortable with. And then you having a conversation with us to talk about what you're comfortable with and what comfort level you're at, and then just having a conversation with either Dwayne and I to make sure that we're following best practices. And then if you know, what we always have suggested, and I really love doing this, is that when if you're considering bringing a photographer into the property, that you have the photographer, you do a 3-way call or a video conference and have the photographer have a conversation with the seller so that they can ask any questions that they have. And it's not you playing the middleman. Just get them involved, get them on the phone, let them ask all of the questions that they might have about how do you handle it. And if you're considering doing anything like videoing a vacant property or a virtual tour and you just want to do it yourself, or your seller doesn't want a photographer in, they're okay with you, but that's it, then maybe talk to us or talk to those photographers about what some of their best practices are for how they're handling it. I think it was, again, very interesting when we had Mark Karlstrom on, and he was talking about how he has the seller leave the doors propped open so that he basically closes it with his foot when he leaves and never touches anything in the home. So, you know, again, it's all right now about best practices and really about just making sure that we're having conversations with every party involved to talk about comfort level and individual concerns. Let's see, when will those social media images appear on VAC, the ones on your slide? Those have been there. Those have been there for a little while. I know some of our agents have been using those for a couple of weeks. That slide, I think we actually put out 2 weeks ago. The instruction on the bottom of the slide, it says where to go to get them. So Janice, if you're having a challenge with finding them, we'll probably get you linked up with marketing today and have them help you get those, or maybe even Chris could help us with that. Well, we can reach out to him and have him get that figured out for you. And the photographer wears gloves and masks, right? Well, again, that's a conversation that you need to have with the photographer. Make sure that they have those things available. Not everybody has those things at their disposal right now. So it's, again, individual conversations with those vendors. Any vendor that's going to be going into the house, whether it be the photographer, the pest inspector, the home inspector, all of those people, it's a good idea to get them on the phone and having a conversation. Anything else? I think that was it for the questions. I think we answered them all.
Great. All right, and Mary Marks, thank you for sending me. I got your text, so she sent me a new video for tomorrow. So that's another listing for the caravan tomorrow. And awesome. We appreciate you guys very much, and congratulations on the continued success. I know it's a volume that we're experiencing, but we're still moving forward. And that, for me, my passion, you guys, is that we get through this, we get to the other side, and we all experience the success that we're experiencing together, and that's really important. So please stay safe, wash your hands, wear your masks in public, and know that Stephanie and I are here to help you with all of the questions. And there's no question that you can't ask us. We're going to give you our best opinion and work with you together to come up with a solution that's best for you, because not every situation is the same for everybody. Okay.
All right. And if you guys, if anybody gets a chance, make sure you reach out to Judy Baggett. Today is her birthday.
Happy birthday, Judy. All right, guys. Thank you.
All right. Have a great day.
Bye.
Bye.